Seems like it's that really hard variety. And they've done some painting to it. There's some more goobers in this. This could benefit from an infrared heat lamp and some scraping to remove this residual putty. Like this wall here could use it. This surface here could use it. It's like they scraped it and they just kept scraping and scraping, and they tried to get closer, but then they did a hack out here, peeling up wood. And this is a very thin fin. This is called the fin of the sash. Quick anatomy. When you're looking at the window, you got your top rail, your bottom rail, you got your stiles. And then bar goes from one span across to the other. And a muntin typically is short. It goes from one thing to the next. Just this one little bit. This is a muntin. This is a muntin, muntin, bar, bar, bar. Sometimes on more traditional windows, the bar will run the full length, but they didn't do that as often now because when you have your window manufacturing equipment, if you're cutting a tenon for your top rail and your bottom rail, we'll just make it easy because you have the same stopper adjustments to knock out your bars horizontally. So you don't have to do a separate length for this whole process. It's easier math, but it's a weaker joint. If one of these fails, then you can have muntins pop off vertically. Gravity works against it. Here's this little rain drip windbreak thing. Very 1930s into early 40s. Kind of useful. It's more applicable for interior swing casements, which is what we have. And on the edge of the sash, they have these little notches here, which also exist in the jamb. And those were meant to be like little wind breaks or weather breaks, to where you have this cavity for this turbulence or this water collection, so that it can have a way to go down to the window sill. And if you look, when you look at the jambs, you'll see some joinery on it that there's holes for all this stuff to escape. So this thing, interior swing casements are kind of a terrible idea in extreme weather conditions, but that's what is here, and so they had to do all this additional stuff to make it withstand the environment that it is. I'm looking at the interior. We got one casement latch. I've got a nail sticking down here, don't know why. It's not to connect anything because the joinery is right here. It's a mortise and tenon joinery. An open face mortise and tenon joinery. Cool. Oil-based interior paint on top of another green paint. Could have originally been that Forest Service stained green color, which you can still get.
Which is the counter inside, right?
I don't know if the counter was stained green or if it was just natural wood. But Bob, did you find any green stain when you were scraping it?
I got photos of the paint, or at least I did.
It had the green paint, but yeah.
No, I didn't see a stain. I saw two different coats of paint.
Okay. It looks nice. It's all scraped down. Okay, cool. So, here's our window. What I would normally do, I would spend more time scraping this, especially with the infrared heat lamp. But there's some tricks you can do. You can get your Sacred Richardson flat bar, and you can sharpen it. That's a hard one. And you can use it as a scraper, that kind of a thing. Bump, whamp, whamp, knock off all the loose goobers. But an infrared heat lamp does better, but that takes time. But you can also get this loose paint off while you're doing it. There's techniques. We don't have it to go full process or the time, so we're gonna glaze it as is right now. I'm pulling out glazing points. These are little metal thingies that keep the glass in after here. Take it past one. And that that is a securing anchoring system for the glass.
And how many of them get put in a typical pane this size?
Typically, I would 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, okay.
I just do 4. You don't have to do a bunch. Where's our best glazing candidate? This one's gonna take more wood. I'm voting
But you know I'm about
this one. The what?
Gee, this one sure is interesting and different.
Is that one sure interesting and different?
Totally.
How will they install the points?
Oh, they use a point driver, which, Will, I believe you're the only one who has one up here.
Oh, good thing I'm here.
It tastes different too.
Donnie? No, you're supposed to eat the paint chips, not the points.
I've only used
It's
the
sweeter.
amateur points, which have a slot for a screwdriver. You just-
Mr. Push Point? Yeah, Mr. Push Point.
That's not the real McCoy.
It's fine. It'll do in a pinch. Sometimes I'll do a different technique. I'll use a chisel and like a diamond point, and I'll tap it in, or clip those push points a little bit more because they kind of stick out a bit, especially for 1 3/8 sash or a 1/4 inch rabbet, which is this. Here's our deck of glass. I hope it fits, because we showed up to the project and there's all this glass. Oh, thank you, sir. You're always there to help me, Bob, because I do need help. So, once you cut this, they might slide free.
Don't cut the glass though.
Don't cut the glass. Glass will scratch. Tempered glass scratches easier than plate glass. Why is that?
Yeah.
At the killing process, they take typical plate glass and they heat it in the treatment method, and for some reason after that process it turns a little wavy, but it takes the scratch so easily. And I think, it's 7 times stronger than plate glass in the field, but it's extremely fragile on the edges. Like this can take a knock and it might chip, but if you do it on tempered glass, it just blows up into pieces. There's so much tension in that thing. So let's see what we got. Hey! Oh, why did I do the Fonzie first? Before making sure. No, this one's gonna need a little more work. On the fly demo. I'll be cockeyed too. And we may want a different frame for this. Oh, barely. Oh, barely. Okay, so here's a trick you can do. Take your sacred Richardson flat bar that you sharpened in there, and then you can shave it out. This putty is DAP, and DAP is not my preferred material. It would be Sarco type M glazing putty rather than the dual glaze, which is what we have here.
What
Dual
does
glaze.
that mean, Chris?
Well, dual glaze is good for the field. I'm so glad you asked, Donovan.
Gee, Chris, what does that mean?
But wait, there's more. So I like dual glaze is good for in the field. So is a drop cloth. Maybe we'll get that one soon. Type M skins quicker. It's more for a shop environment.
I was
But-
really puzzled for a little bit.
Why? For what?
I thought I was hearing someone talking.
My radio's on.
Oh, hearing all the gossip, all the Forest Service talk.
It's really not as interesting as it sounds.
No, it's not. It's usually not.
Engines changing rotations.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. Weather check-in, all that stuff. Yeah, totally.
10 and 4.
10-4. Roger Dodger. Alright.
It's so cute.
So, this is sash putty. Anyway, don't hold it for too long or else it gets really sticky. If you want to just get a squishy feel for it, coil into a snail.
It's like
You do
clay,
you.
a little bit.
It's like clay. You can color it. You can add a little lavender flavor to it, little essential oils. And so I'm laying a layer of putty onto the rabbit,
Wow.
or rebate if you listen to read George Elson's book from 1908, Modern Practical Joinery from England. So that's more of an English thing. We call the things we call transoms here, in England they call them fan lights. So, and something larger than a rabbit is called a badger.
Are you putting this
Is
on?
that interesting? Why not? Little rodent cuts. Here we go. There.
Is a rabbit a road? I don't think so.
Can you give me a rag and turpentine, please?
Rag and turpentine. Where are we keeping that? We haven't touched those yet.
Anybody know where the rag and turpentine is?
I got it.
Thank you, Will.
Wonderful.
You follow him.
All
Now
right.
so you can learn.
Here's your Play-Doh.
Thank you. That's Donovan. He's my son. What can I say? He's special. All right. So, because you want the turpentine and rag to keep your hands clean. So now that you got the putty in there, usually I'll use a rag to rub it in to keep the finger smudges off the glass. That's because after you do this for 14 years, you kind of become a little perfectionist and you become as lazy as humanly possible from doing the work. Will, I need your point driver too.
You need my point driver as well?
Or we can use Mr. Push Points.
Is this just like moving it around so the putty can
Smush out of the way. Yeah, I'm kind of bedding it in to smush, so you get a particular thickness. Once you, there's this magical thickness, and I can't tell you whether it's 16th or at 30 seconds, but once you work it all down, and then it kind of smushes and it gives back, then you're pretty much there. You don't want to.
Here you go.
Ooh, yeah, that's a nice one. Diamond number 1s. Keep an eye out for this at your antique store, because a brand new one is $250, and they're not as good as those ones. Yeah, once CRL Lawrence bought everything, it all went downhill. Typical mega corporations.
How much pressure are you applying?
Enough to make it work.
Yeah.
Teenagers. God.
What did
Duh.
I clicked the button.
Oh, holy shit.
Don't look-
You did that?
Yeah, look down the barrel as you do it.
Oh my.
No, she was using gun safety. She was pointing it away.
You'll see something real cool.
That's so funny. Okay. So,
That was crazy.
That's good to know it works.
yeah, it works. Really instills confidence as you're firing this thing amongst the crowd.
Oh, this is Red Devil brand?
Yeah,
Cool.
they go
Yeah.
back.
Wow.
Okay, this
Gee
is
willikers.
turpentine. You can't buy this in your state at your local grocery store, but you can order it online still, I think. It'll tell you Proposition 69 or 65 or whatever it is. They're on every packaging.
Yeah.
Okay, good. We got our turpentine rag.
Would there be an alternative that would also work?
Maybe pine rosin, if you can get pine rosin, or what's another one?
What's the difference between
Acetone.
pine resin and pine rosin?
Well, I actually don't. One is very thin, and one is very thick.
You could tap
Will
a tree.
And
That-
pine
that
tar
sure
is
is
even
swell.
thicker. May I
That
see
sure
the
is swell.
point driver? All right. So, Mr. Point Driver, I won't point it at anybody. Safety's on. As you know, when you push it, you click. It's like a stapler, but it shoots that direction. Here's your little magazine pressure, because there's a magazine of points in it. And you want to have this notch facing inward, because when it drives the point, the driver will catch that notch and do a better drive into your workpiece. So keep that in mind. Left or right, doesn't matter. And I'm gonna rest it on the glass, But this one has a nice little gap piece, so you're not running the sole or the face of your striker on the glass. So there's a little bit of a rest. If you don't have this little piece of metal, you can just use like a business card, lay it on top, and then do your shooting so that it has that gap between the gap between the glass and your putty and everything else. But so for this, I hold it against the glass. I'm pushing pressure this way, not down. And sometimes I'll hold it so. Ba-doink. Dang, that really drove it. Nice. That's so quiet. Wow.
Yeah, that one's like
This is nice.
a lot quieter.
You use a CRL Lawrence and she's like, ka-bang, ka-bang. It just sounds like a gun. So they are driven. Very cool.
There might be a little bit of wiggle room for the glass.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a give up and down.
But not in and out.
And now I'm scraping out the back side of the putty so I can see through the other side. And reason being so that I can figure out what my angle needs to be when I am cutting the putty. I don't recommend glazing in the sun. The warmer it gets, the more stickier it becomes. That oil really becomes activated. Flip side is when you're in a really cold place and you want it to be warmer, put it in the microwave for 1 minute. And that'll warm it up just enough. So okay, I cut the backside off. I got this, and now I get a wad that size of a baseball or something, whatever is comfortable to fit in your hand. And as I'm feeding it, I'm almost like pretending that that's the edge of the glass, kind of like skimming it into the rabbit. And then you know, you got that much deposited into it. But I'm also rotating my wrist as I'm playing it in, so you're almost like at a skew rolling application. Skew roll application.
Continue feeding in the putty.
In a way, you're kind of continuing feeding in the putty. You're almost doing an arc scoop rather than a straight scoop because you have a longer travel.
More
Cool, man.
consistency.
Cool consistency. So boom, boom, off the heel, do the whole thing there. An 1 3/4 sash will eat putty like there's no tomorrow. So we're ordering more because I know we're gonna go through it. But I'll gladly go through all the putty today if that gets us glazed windows. Because we don't have a crew of 12 people right now. Crazy army of preservationists. Cool, so we applied the putty. So I'm collecting this as the community radio station. I forget the name of what it is. They're playing all kinds of music, and it's not like, you know, Joey's Tire Emporium. You know, this is supported by da-da-da-da-da, conservation, blah, blah, blah. Sounds like a community radio station.
You want to put it on Davis?
Is it 93? 90.3?
This is like 89.5 or something?
This might be coming out of Tahoe.
Out of Tahoe? Oh. Is it different people over there? The Tahoe people and then the Western people? No, they're all the same. Okay. Very cool. Done, done, done. Okay, so you take your putty knife, and the ones that Historicorp have are these little guys. I think this one is yours too. I borrowed some new tools.
That I stole from you?
That you probably stole from me. Yeah, probably. That's how it went. He did a thing with me back in November over at Coloma. It's like my second time ever being in California, like last November. Historicorp had me go down to teach, and I did some hiking in Desolation. And it's really cool to come back the next season to be working near where I went hiking, you know, at Granite Chief and Desolation, all that shit. It's like, wow, I can see by the passes, I can see the peaks I did. So it's really fun. The Sierras are a totally different animal. I'm more accustomed to the North Cascades. So really, I'm just using Historicorp to get around. I'm not ashamed. It's so much fun. Okay, so your bent curved glazing knife. This one's a little narrow for 1 3/4. That is not enough to cover it. I'll be right back. This is my favorite glazing knife. And I'll let you play with it still. But we'll get the alternative for a thicker sash.
Do you have permit for this? Yeah. I've been wanting to get some. Oh, there's a machine in the instant one for snow. Like wherever it's snow. That was really funny. For Christmas, I got like a bunch of snow gear from my family. I'm like, it's for when you go on the road. So I was like, I'm just saving the boxes. But I'm like, these are
I'm still gonna try with this one, but we'll see. I don't like that one. All right, so I'm gonna try. No, it's not gonna. We're gonna go big mode here. So I like to start in the corners. Rotate, and then I'll go down I'm using the edge as your reference point, and I'm using the bottom corner as my thickness. And as I get close to the corner, I kind of rotate my knife, then I exit out that corner. Because I'm constantly resting my knife along that wooden edge. And I rotate, 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 still making contact there, but then I make contact here in this corner, and then I slide out for the exit. I'll always return to the corners, but that's kind of a nice way to get started. And then I'll go back into that little cut, same technique. And I got this finger for pressure, this one here for downward pressure, this is for control. Rotate and exit. I'm still a little thick.
Do you have to rotate on the entrance too then as you start?
I think, no, I don't. I just go I kind of cut straight into it, and I get comfortable with the angle. At least that's kind of how I'm thinking it is. Yeah, tarp would be nice. We have drop cloths, and you can use the putty to clean up little goobers. Boom. Okay, Donovan, do you know in the window kit there's a little tub of white powder?
I'm already lost.
The orange toolbox in the tool crib?
I just had that.
Okay. That's true, you've only been in that building. Can someone get me the pumice or the whiting? Anybody know where that is? Will, do you know? Will's the window guy. I'm not anymore. I'm just supervisor. He's the master. I wish he'd stick around for a couple more weeks.
Keep him here against his will.
But
Get stuff
don't
done.
get it, Will, against his will.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
We'll just
Wow.
change the lock on the gate when we leave.
Change the lock.
Just stuck up here.
Bill, guys, looks like you're stuck.
Guess you better fix it. There you go.
You can only let you go after you fix it. Gee.
Yes, that's what we said.
I'll pay you 5 pence an hour.
Take his phone.
Take his phone.
That's true.
Yeah.
There's options.
Like a barbed wire fence.
This is where you enter perfection mode. Don't get lost in perfection mode. And then
Yeah, I imagine you reach the point of diminishing returns fairly quickly.
very quickly. If you're doing more than like 4 or 5 passes, yeah. It's like ceramics, you know, if you're turning bowls and mugs, it's like don't spend all your time on that one bowl. Try to make 10 before you settle on one. So you can see that, and that. And you can slice it off. I'm gonna
I
call that
normally
one
do
good
like
enough.
2 swipes minimum and like 3 or 4 maximum.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, because you usually go over the corner once. Nice. Oh, look at the fancy brush. Okay.
This might be my favorite step.
You want to take over?
Me take over?
You want to take over?
Yeah, sure.
Really? You'll do this? Are you gonna do the demo? Or you want me to do the demo?
What do you want to do?
What do you want to do?
What do you want to do?
You said this is your favorite step.
Zoom in on the
Oh, I
bucket.
like doing it. It's fun.
So it's whiting for cleaning leaded stained glass or changing putty consistency. But it's also for collecting oil off glass. You're gonna start talking?
Sweet, sure. This here is a white powder. Don't get caught with it in your back of your car. Kind of just shake it back and forth on the window to get even dusting. And with enough of it, try not to get too much of it directly onto the putty, because then that'll get it dry and dusty.
Oh, you can.
Correct me if I'm wrong at any point. I
Yeah,
haven't
you
done
can
this in
dust it on
years.
the putty. That's why we use it. Yeah, I'll
Okay.
correct you if you're wrong.
And then you just get it around, and eventually you'll start seeing fingerprints and putty stains. And then you just wipe those until it goes away. So see, like that is gone.
You could even let me do one short little. You could even be a little aggressive. Sorry, it's okay. You can be a little pushed down, and if you get too much going on, or it's too stubborn. That's the word, stubborn. You can use your finger with the pumice and get that off. Okay. I'll let you go a little longer,
Just
then
makes
I'll
the
give
oil
my
crusty.
rendition. And then you can tell them while I'm showing and telling.
Oh, I meant not to get the pumice on there, but not to get the brush on there.
Oh, yeah,
That's
don't.
what I meant to.
Yeah, you don't want to beat up the putty quite yet. You can cheat a little bit. You can brush the putty, and I'll show you that little trick to get the edges totally clean.
Does this have to happen before the putty dries?
Yeah, because if you try to do this the next day or a couple hours later, the putty really dries up, and then you gotta like buff it off with turpentine and razor blade, and it's a little obnoxious. So nice. So I'll take over. I want you to tell me about your detective job.
My detective job.
Remember? You're being
Finding
Sherlock
the
Holmes.
board?
Yeah.
Finding the board.
You share the board story because it's
Alright.
really good. And I'll do this while you guys watch as a show and tell example.
One of the grain window shutters that were keeping the doors closed was missing. We also saw some footprints underneath, so we assumed someone wiggled it loose and climbed in because it found nothing, which they were super happy with, I assume. But the board was missing, and we didn't want to spend time and money on fixing it, so we just wanted to find it. So I thought, if I were to remove this, where would I put it? And I looked around, and there were a couple of rocks you could hide it behind, but that would be too easy to find, and I wouldn't want to go too far to hide a window shutter. So what I would have done is just tossed it as far into the bushes that are on the other side of the cabin from this point, as far as I could. There's this big span of bushes. I would have just lobbed it into there. So I did that with a rock, and I went to find the rock, and lo and behold, I saw a little window shutter.
We look. He said I found a guy's, and you pointed, and we're like, we don't even know what you're talking about. But you don't see no shutter. It's the same color as the bushes, and you're like just that little corner of a board you could only see, and then there was the shutter.
Bringing forensic science into.
So someone hucked it like a frisbee into the bush. Thanks, person. So now you can go along the putty. This is the part where you can cheat. You can kind of brush out some blemishes, but you can't get rid of them, just alleviate the blemishes. That's kind of my principles for historic preservation. You can't make it look brand new, but
Where you're gonna make the most mistakes is when you're like trying to clean out the stuff that's right along the edge with the brush.
yeah, so you go in at an angle inward. And then you want to get a little bit of pumice, and I'm gonna tilt this up. Forgot about those. This is not exactly the window shop. And then, boom. Dust the interior so that it's clean. You can also look through and see where your little excess. I have a little too much putty here, a little too much putty there. So,
How do you know if you have too much putty?
when you look through the frame, you look through the glass. Yeah, you guys. You'll see putty, and you don't want to see putty when you're looking out the window.
Yeah, you'll see it overlapping. That's when.
So it's obstructing your sight line.
Yeah, it's obstructing your sight. There you go. So you can see the big white
It's
seam
also
right there.
ugly.
Whoa, man, that's.
Muntin, is that the name?
Sorry?
Is there a name for this side of?
Well, this is the interior of the muntin, and so I would call that the profile section. And there's a whole thing about window manufacturing and tenons and joineries and measurements and reveals. But you know, I think that's for like those that do that kind of thing full time, like me. You know, I manufacture historically accurate window sash and doors, and so I don't think there's definitely a difference. Some people strictly stick to window restoration, or others strictly stick to window manufacture, and I seem to be, don't know why, doing both. But it's a nice thing to have for some projects where you have a mix of where you need to take something back to what it was. Like example would be 1960s or 70s, replacing a lot of windows with aluminum windows. And so those have failed now, and Now I'm being hired to fix those on an old schoolhouse, restore the existing historic windows, but replace the aluminums with historically accurate wood windows or window sash. Anyway, okay, that's obsessive level there. But in theory, that's your glazed window, and you got your turpentine rag, which you want to be mindful in this type of climate from combusting. So that's usually what goes off. If you're like in an infrared heat lamp, some oily substance, it's usually the solvent that kicks up first before the oil does. That's window glazing in a nutshell. I don't know if you guys have any questions or not, but I don't see why you would. It's fairly straightforward. It's fairly simple. And for those that want to do putty stuff, we could work on this window. Where's Will behind the camera? I know the interior needs to be scraped still, lightly scraped off. It's not terrible, but that can also be done while there's glass inside. So someone could take this frame and glaze it. I'd love to see progress on these things, and we could round up 1 or 2 more frames depending on who wants to glaze, or we could even do a raise of hand who wants to glaze. 1, 2, 3. Holy macaroni, 3 of you. Okay, so we're gonna make 3 glazing stations, or people can work together as a team per frame. That's how we did it in trade school. We kind of do a little buddy system. But we're at an odd number now.
Would it be more helpful for me to glaze also, or work on something else?
This is your time.
I'm just here.
Your
doing
time
what
is
I
here.
What do you want to do?
You can tour the job and check it out. How
I'll
about
just walk
that,
around
you
for
guys?
a
Go for a walk, see what speaks to you, and then you'll migrate to what's of interest. How about that?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Oh, when you're done doing all this, you want to rub down all that excess putty off the frame with your little turpentine rag. That's why we love the turpentine rag, because it cleans. And if you have any pre-existing glass that's really nasty, like a lot of solvents or dirt and stuff, there's a nice residue in turpentine. So you could actually clean the glass off with the turpentine, and that will cause a little bit of a slippery film on the glass, but it cuts oil, right? So you got those 2 things going on. But then you can also use a single edge razor blade to get stuff off now, because it's got a smoother surface. It's less prone to scratching. No back and forth, just a forward direction. And then when you're done cleaning it and glazing it, then you can take your pumice and get that turpentine residue off. Often I'll clean the glass before I glaze it. And you can go like this. I'm just going side to side. And there you have it. Okay. Yay! Yay! The sun is getting over us. We could set up glazing stations.